Hey, we're late. Sorry, everybody. Welcome back to the Nerdrotic Podcast. My name is Gary Beekler. I am live in San Francisco, California, coming to you from nerdrotic.com, and down south of me in San Diego, in El Cajon, California,
yes.
in his new digs, is Dennis Bethalkis. What is up, Dennis?
As you can see by the lovely red wall behind me.
Painted yourself, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, you missed a spot right up to the left.
I know. I did that purposely just to see if you were looking.
I was. You know me. I'll point that shit out, and so will you.
I know. Hey, that was almost 3 coats on that damn thing back there.
Jesus Christ.
Well,
it looks good. It's
I had to get rid of the damn tan. The tan was bothering me.
Yeah, tan doesn't. Was it beige or tan?
It was this really ugly kind of 90s that Adobe tan kind of thing.
Oh God.
Yeah, I still have institutional blue on one of my walls here too. So
I kind of like that one. Reminds me of my institutional days. Yeah, there you go. So this is a kind of an impromptu live stream, for one, because Dennis missed Friday, and that really sucks. We missed you. John and I had a good chat about stuff.
I started watching some of it, but yeah, I had other stuff I was unpacking. I'm still in a sea of boxes. So
obviously you missed the stuff we were talking about you. That's good. Never mind. Don't go back.
I saw the very beginning of it. I just saw all the good stuff, and then I was like, okay, that's good. That's all I need.
They're done mentioning me. I'm out. Well, and we didn't think, actually last night when we talked about doing this, we didn't think we had much to talk about. And then Andre Brooks posted something on my Facebook about a friend of mine, Leaf Smith, who owns Mission Comics and Art here in San Francisco, is in trouble. He's in trouble closing. And, it's eerily similar to the shout outs I put out right before I sold my store. With my situation very different from Lee's, and I'll get into a little bit of my situation tonight because we're going to do some a little later. We're going to talk some serious stuff a little bit at first, and then a little later we're going to do some reminiscing about the Comic Outpost. And you guys can, if you're in the chat, you can join in at any point in time. We'll answer your questions about anything. It's all good. But the main topic of today is how to save your local comic shop, Dennis. And my God, we've had and this is just what I've seen in 2 articles and a couple of videos. We've got 5 shops closing, one up possibly closing, actually 6. Heroes and Villains closed in Dublin, which is in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And what are the 4 that are in trouble? Well, I can name one, On Comic Ground, because I was Maryland's first customer. But who else?
Yeah, Villainous Lair. Right now they're getting ready to close down on the 29th. The other one that did close down was Artifacts, but I think he moved out of the area. So and then there's a fourth one. I can't remember who that was offhand. I just saw it briefly.
That Villainous Lair, or did you mention that?
No, I mentioned Villainous Lair. Yeah,
On Comic Ground. So there's only 3 down in San Diego.
There was a 4th one that was there too. And I'm pulling up the article right as we speak in order to.
All right. Well, there's a lot. And while you're pulling that up, there is a lot of shops either in trouble or going out of business. Now, in trouble, what is it?
Rising Sun Comics in Mission Valley.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And they're like, and they closed? They're gone?
Yeah. They closed at the start of November. Yep.
Okay. So a lot of times shops don't say anything, and a lot of times they can be saved, especially nowadays when you have crowdfunding and stuff. And that's part of what the article that we will link in our description when you're done. It's in Mission Local. If you want to Google it, you could just put Leaf Smith Mission Local, Mission Comics and Art possibly closing. I think he's doing a meeting tonight, or I don't know if it's during the day. If it's actually, I'm not going to be able to make it because I'm podcasting all day, but I am going to his shop tomorrow if he's open, if not Tuesday, with my son, and we're going to spend a couple $300 in his shop. Because Leaf, for one, when I was closing my shop, was very supportive and nice, and I want to return the favor. I was there right around when he opened. We shared a 24-hour comic event together.
I remember that,
yeah, I have a video of it and everything, and just really cool dude. The thing is, it's what's different. My situation is not going to be related to what we're going to be talking about today. And again, I'll go into it, but what's going on today is there's a lot of factors involved in a shop closing. Okay. Rent being one of them, but when the industry itself is killing you, when the thing you're trying to sell is actively involved in your demise, that's disturbing. And on top of that, when the industry and some in the industry, creators, companies, Marvel, I'm looking at you, Marvel, somewhat Diamond Distributor, they're all complicit and a lot of times aloof to this problem. Okay. Because of the other factors. The problem is we are now seeing consequences of the very poor sales for Marvel. Dennis and I are not going to get into the whole SJW Marvel argument. That argument's been made. It's still being made. It's being made very well in other channels. And I recommend you go, search YouTube. There's both sides of the argument. I agree with one over the other. And I think these are very good and valid arguments that sometimes get lost when personal attacks happen, but you stay away from the personal attacks, you stay in the content, and they have a very good argument that Marvel Comics has been putting out crap for a long time now, and stores are suffering the consequences. It takes time. These things have, as with comics, things don't change fast, and they're still putting out crap from the old era, right? And people have checked out, and they're not buying stuff. What did in the article, Leaf said his sales were down 17%,
something like that. And I know same thing with Villainous Lair. They were saying their sales were down all of 2017, and to the point where they weren't able to meet their costs. That's what was going on.
Okay,
so, same thing. And they also do gaming as well. So I mean, it was all across the board essentially, not just comics.
Yeah. And, you got to have a side hustle. Okay. You always have to have, for one, what gives Dennis and I the right to even talk about, besides having a microphone and an internet connection and a mouth, is Dennis and I are both former comic book retailers. I probably should have started with that. I own the Comic Outpost for 10 years in San Francisco. Leaf is a friend of mine. I am friends with a lot of the retailers here still, or friendly, we can say. Dennis had a shop for a couple of years out in Davis, California.
Not a couple of years, couple of months, actually.
Couple of months. Wow.
Yeah.
And a college town. And
yes,
it's 4-color comics. And this is before I knew Dennis. And I met Dennis, actually, we were both customers in the shop I bought. So, and I have a very selfish personal interest in this is I am going to be opening up a store again someday. And I very much would like there to be an industry to come back to. Okay. And honestly, I couldn't have, I sold my stuff, and again, I'm going to get in that story later, but when I sold my store was actually the perfect time because it was right before all this stuff went down. It was at the end of 2013. And so I got to miss all this because my head probably would have exploded, or I probably would have rage quit my store at some point. Doing something like when DC was pulling crap, I considered pulling all DC titles out of my store. Now I was brought to my senses, but
I remember smacking you once.
Yeah. No, it's frustrating when you got one distributor, all right, and you got two major comic book companies. None of the other ones are nice little. They're side orders. They're fries. They're coleslaw. They're not anything you're going to make any money off of. So it's DC and Marvel. And when they start playing around with their business model, they're playing around with my business model, and that crap used to keep me up at night. And if you're a comic shop owner and you didn't worry about that stuff, well, good on you, mate. That's great. But I used to worry about that stuff. So yeah, 6 comic stores, in California in the last year. That is a huge, yes. DC, looking at Hallam 899, DC Rebirth is keeping it afloat, but he said DC Rebirth is pretty good. I totally agree, by the way. I am a big fan of it, but it also goes to show that DC's not big enough to carry the industry, and Marvel is. Marvel's also big enough to destroy it. And they're the leader, and when they're down, everybody's down. There was an article earlier that IDW was down 90%, 90. I don't know how it's still around, to be honest with you. It must be somebody's passion project.
Yeah, they're honestly, I've been to the studio because they're down here in San Diego.
Yep.
And honestly, they were one of the first in the newly revamped Liberty Station area, so I know their rent is a little bit cheaper than what everyone else is going in right now. So, and they also have a museum that they do, and they do every other month. They do some talk thing where they bring in scientists and artists, and so I think that's pretty much how they kind of get revenue going from that.
That still is like pennies.
It's pennies. Yeah, it's not much.
I think they must, and they probably hire entirely contract. Everybody's 1099. You know what I mean? I don't think they have any full-time employees. They probably have like a skeleton crew.
It's very, they probably have like, I don't know offhand, but I know it's a low amount of people.
Yeah, and they have a lot of properties that carry them too, and they're for the most part a good company. They've made some pretty bad decisions lately. So what really we're gonna give some unsolicited advice on how you can save, how a shop owner could save their shop. This is stuff I could have used to save my shop. My shop was at the point of breaking even when I sold it. And the thing was, I didn't really want to break even or do anything less than that. And I had an opportunity to sell and get out, and I took it, and thinking that, I could always come back someday. And, it's good to take a break. I did it for 10 years anyway. And I didn't, the industry goes through ups and downs, but this is worse than the 90s. Okay. The 90s crash is nothing compared to this, because most best-selling comic books are selling at the cancellation level of the 90s crash.
Yeah.
And plus print is kind of dead.
Yep.
Comic books will survive. Okay. I'll tell you that right now, in the same way that vinyl records will survive. It'll be sparse. There won't be as many shops, and it'll have to be, the best advice I can give is do not make it your sole source of income. Period.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't mine. And it basically a paying hobby. That's what it should be. Have a side hustle, have another job, or maybe a spouse or a partner that works, or do it in retirement, which was my original plan. Or make it your second job and open like 3 or 4. There's a million ways to do it, but do not make it your sole source of income, because I can probably count on one hand how many guys are big enough to make a good living, and they do. And one of them's here. Brian Hibbs is one of the most successful comic shop owners that I know, and Jamie Newbold is more successful than Brian, and they both have very different but really smart models. Okay. And these are guys who do make their living. Now, Jamie does have a side hustle a little bit. But Brian, no, Brian supports a family off a store in San Francisco. I don't know if you'd like me telling this, but he bought a house in San Francisco based on comic book sales. So that guy knows his shit. Okay. And he's really, 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 really good at market research and the numbers of it. And his stores are, forgive me, Brian, but they're nothing special. They're not the prettiest stores. They don't have the most comics, but they're like the smartest stores. He uses his space the best you could possibly use it. And what he does is he just crunches every number like freaking Rain Man on sales. He's excellent at just picking out what sells, what's going to sell good. He doesn't dick around with comics that don't sell good. He doesn't really do back issues. He's pure comic books and graphic novels, and he is really good at it. Jamie had one of the best ideas. It was so brilliant. He went into an industrial area where the rent is super cheap. And it probably only started out at like $300-400 a month when he started.
Exactly.
And started out just selling back issues. I remember the day he started selling new comics, and he wasn't sure he should have done it. He's like, I don't know. I don't want to rely on this stuff. And he was making a great living just selling back issues. This guy had amassed a huge collection with a partner. He'd been a comic book collector all his life. And now he's on TV. Now he's on freaking TV. And this was my mentor. So Jamie Newbold, he's been on Pawn Stars. What's the other show he's going to be on?
He's going to be on, it's another history channel about collectibles, and he is their comic book expert in collectibles.
Yeah. Is it going to be on history or?
It's history, yeah, because History Channel is what Pawn Stars is on. History Channel is where also, like, they have American Pickers and, Swamp Kings and, anything except history. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have Jamie on this podcast soon. By the way, hello, Mark. Halam 899. Sorry, I can't read. California public school educated. And people watching, greetings. Feel free to chime in with questions or my diatribe will be over pretty soon. But you can tell I'm a little fired. Enough, though, shut up. Well, I don't know. You can chime in anytime you want there, buddy.
I'm just letting you, I'm letting you run through your steam.
I'm fired up, dude. I'm fired up.
Someone's going to sleep well tonight. That's all I'm going to say.
When Maryland, when I heard about Maryland, I got really pissed. Okay. Cause Maryland, I'm one of our first customers. I'm pretty sure I was the first because my first wife at the time printed her business cards right before she opened, and I signed up as a subscriber. Wanted to support a female-owned comic shop. That was the first one that I knew of in San Diego, and she's been there forever. She's more of an indie store, and that's what Leaf is too. He's more of an indie store, and that's the kind of store you can't really have anymore. Unfortunately, that's not going to carry you.
Yeah, we had been talking about this since yesterday for the most part. What we were going to talk about. And one of the things I brought up is that, you can't really, it seems like we're kind of going backwards a bit on some things. I'm going to run through a brief history real quickly. So comic book specialty stores didn't really exist until about mid 70s, late 70s, somewhere around there. And of course they've boomed since then. They've gone all over the place. And now we're starting to see a retraction of that, because of, like Gary said, print is starting to die. Newspapers, of course, are going out, magazines, all that kind of stuff. And we're going digital for the most part, except for comics. Comics people still want because they're a collectible item. Excuse me. And I've seen a mixing of stores too. I've seen like comic books and coffee. I thought of comic book and laundromats, that kind of thing. And that's the way you want to go. Is like Gary was saying, you always want to have some kind of side hustle that's going to keep the store afloat, because comics aren't going to be able to do it anymore. They're just not. And also I was saying, like, old stuff is coming back. Like we're seeing a resurgence of bookstores coming back again, like the brick and mortar bookstores. We're also seeing mail order is coming back because of Amazon. Now, granted, mail order is a lot faster now because you get it either same day or next day, versus ask your grandmother, grandfathers, or great grandmother and great grandfathers when they used to order stuff via mail order and take a couple of weeks to get there, not just ordering it online and getting it, same day. And that's coming back, and mainly because of Amazon and FedEx and things like that. And it's become cheaper at the cost of course, your U.S. Postal Service, which is, hurting. Which is why Trump was saying, he wants to increase. Yeah.
Stop.
No, he just wants to increase. No politics. I'm saying he wanted to increase, wanted the Postal Service to increase their mailing fees because of that. That wasn't political. That was just what he said.
The Postal Service has been a pretty shitty run business for a long time, so they need to do something. But I don't think increasing their fees is.
I don't think it is either.
No, I think actually they get enough money. They just need to appropriate it better, in my opinion. They get plenty of money. There's two private companies. There's two private companies kicking their ass right now.
Exactly, and there's a reason for that.
Because they're private companies. That's why. That's exactly why. They're not run by the government. So, but aside from that, the comic book experience has also been hurt with the internet, because like the one thing the comic book shop had over everything was, well, guys want to come in, girls want to come in and talk about comic books. Okay.
And other things too that are comic related.
And other things, they TV shows and stuff. So it was like a club. You made it a hangout. Not every shop.
It was a bar without alcohol.
Yeah. So that's what mine was. But the thing is, now that we have YouTube and Twitter and everything, now you get that social experience with comics without actually going into the comic shop. But again, they will survive. There's a way to survive. As far as it going backwards, I think it had a heyday and it's kind of reeled back. But indie comics, we're never going to support a shop. Okay. Yeah. That's like, I always called indie comics PBS for a reason. Okay. They're really good. But I always had my indie section, but I never made money on it. Never. You got to sell superheroes. That's got to be your thing if you want to be a comic shop. I'm sorry. And that's the one thing. I was the unabashed superhero store in San Francisco, in a store filled with, I want to be, stores that didn't want to call themselves comic stores or catered to indie stuff. There's still one shop that does it really well because he has a great side hustle. And it's not even a real side hustle. It's James at Isotope. He's just got a great thing going on. I mean, the guy's, his aesthetic, his marketing, everything is genius what he does. So he can actually get away with it. Okay. But precious few people are James Sim. Okay. I decided to go full on superhero in San Francisco, in a place where people kind of look down their nose at superheroes, and it did me pretty damn well. And I'm like, oh, I should be the family friendly store. So within the first few months, I got rid of all my X-rated stuff, and I didn't sell Crossed or any crap like that in my store. That to me, that was porn. And I made it a kid friendly store, had a legit kid section, and lo and behold, kids were coming in and reading comic books. Yep. We hosted birthday parties. Like we did all kinds of, again, side hustle. Comic shops host birthday parties. I made tons of money off that. Okay. I did very well off that. And also
you even had a few offers to have porn shot in there too. If I
did. And I said no. But I thought about it. And also we did TV screenings. We did movie night. We had stand-up comedy in our shop. Those were and I did a sale. So we had comics versus comics. So we had comics come in, do nerd related comedy. And then we'd have a sale, and it was, and my shop was little. So we had like 40, we could fit 45 people in there, not very comfortably, but
James Hayes asks, did comic books make up most of your business, or did toys, collectibles, and games like Magic the Gathering take over?
In the beginning, it was new releases that were vast majority, 80%. As time went on, I got the new releases down. And believe me, this wasn't my original model, and this is not how I wanted it to be, but you got to know your audience. So I got the new releases down to 50%, and the other 50% were back issues and toys. I did not do any card gaming at all. And it was only not out of desire. I just didn't know anything about it. And
you also didn't have the space for it either.
And I didn't really have the space for it. That is in my new plan. That is there. I think card and gaming, they have to go with it. Okay. Yeah. They do. And plus it's a cool social thing that I like. So
everything that I've seen down here in San Diego, it's always cards and games, and they have to have a big place. Like the place I go to right now, Game Empire, I play Dice Masters as a game. It's based on superheroes and cards and dice is what it is. And they actually are moving on the 20th here, as a matter of fact, to a larger location just across the road. Because they just don't have enough space to hold these games, and they found a place that's bigger. They're actually making money. They're packed every single day, and it's mainly the gaming, and they don't sell any comics, so it's just kind of a weird thing, But yeah.
No, it is. I'm gonna read a couple comics. Stay on that topic though. Halam 899. Yes, by the way, we are going to do. We're gonna watch Black Lightning and kind of see how we feel about it. But chances are Dennis and I will be doing a recap Tuesday night about Black Lightning. What are your thoughts on X-Men getting more Marvel comics again? Dude, thank God. That's where the Disney deal sucks. And we knew this kind of crap was going to happen. And I don't think anybody doubted this, that like if the property didn't belong to them, they buried it. They buried the #1 selling comic for 40 freaking years. X-Men was in a top 10 for 40 years straight. And they decided to bury it because they didn't own the property, which really makes, I mean, like, Disney is not the end all be all of business. They make a lot of money, but you know what?
They make a lot of mistakes too.
Yeah, Jerry Jones has bought a lot of high priced players, but the Cowboys just never, they can't even win a freaking playoff game. Okay. Buying shit, you'll have a good start, you'll get people in the seats, and that's really good, but then you have to maintain it. And that's stupid. That's tone deaf and lame and idiotic, and some cuss words I will not say right now. We will have the Pokemon because I got a kid. So again, with gaming, I just got to learn about it. I focus so much on comic books because I got, the OCD thing. I think every collector does. And I'm a big time collector, as you can see. And I tried to cater to many things, but I tried to cater to the collector. We did CGC, but I also, the new release customer, I really just wanted it to be a community where all facets of because comic fans are all different. There's so many different ones. There's very few people who just like, I like everything comics. No, you like there's people who don't like superhero comics, but not superhero comics doesn't mean all indie, not superheroes like Vertigo or The Boys, or, you read some Image stuff, and Image, when right before I closed down, was like doing great. They were actually outselling.
I love the creator-owned comic that they had. That it was like $7.99, came out once a month, but it had like 8 different stories in it. And then one of those stories, would get picked or something like that, and they do an actual comic on it. They would do a spinoff on it, and they don't do it anymore, which is kind of a shame because it was expensive. But I liked it. It was actually a good idea.
It was, and partially what's hurting the industry. Okay, so in order, usually when a comic store goes out of business, it's the owner's fault. So I will start by saying, when I sold the store and it started breaking even, not doing well, it was 100% my fault, my decision, not for lack of trying, but I had a lot of things going on. So whatever's happening now, so I don't have any burning resentments, because it was me. It was me. I decided to sell the store and move on due to some very bad decisions.
I agree. It was all Gary.
What's of course, because Dennis is infallible.
I make Dennis,
it's like my favorite saying: those who try the most fail the most. Okay, so with Leaf and what's going on now, it's Marvel's fault. It's Marvel's fault. There are other factors involved, but as far as largest percentage of blame goes to Marvel. They are the industry leader, and where they go, the industry goes. And we are now at the end user, right before the end user. We are the end user, but is the retailer, and they're the ones suffering now. And this is just the beginning, and that's why another station who's very big, who goes DNC, I'm sure you've heard of them, did a video on Leaf Smith earlier today. I may or may not have shot him the email about this, because he can say things I won't on my station. Okay. And it's a very good video. Check it out. With Leaf, it's Marvel's fault. Now, Marvel, what I'm trying to get to is Marvel needs to effing do something. I know they're not gonna, but it needs to be brought up. Like, they need to do a retailer program. They need to have an emergency summit. They need to effing do something, but they're not gonna. I know they're not gonna, but they should, because this is all in their lap. And there's a lot of creators out there who won't take the blame, but should, for engaging people negatively on the internet, engaging trolls. But not all the people were trolls. Some people were just legit critics, and they got either blocked or insulted. It's been very salty. That's why I stay away from Twitter. It's not how you run a company. If you worked for me and you were blasting people on Twitter, even if they deserved it, you'd be out. You wouldn't be working for me for very long, because you know what? When you're a public figure, even if it's a Z-list celebrity like a comic book creator, you are free to say what you want, but you're also free to lose your job. So, you got to be careful how you deal with customers. Okay. And that's what everybody's a potential customer. Now, I don't know what Marvel can do, but Dennis, this actually started when I did own the shop. And remember when, Diamond's the other problem. And it's not entirely their fault. There's very good people at Diamond. Diamond is the accidental monopoly. Okay.
Yeah.
Remember when they stopped doing West Coast summits?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And that bugged the crap out of me. And that's when all this crap started going downhill. Before SGW Marvel and all of that stuff, Diamond used to do a West Coast summit and it became too expensive. So it became too expensive to talk to your customers, to your partners in business on the West Coast. So you made them fly out to Baltimore, okay, which is a 3,000-mile flight for us on the West Coast. We have to get lodging. We're comic shop owners. We can afford it. And it's Baltimore. Who the F wants that? I mean, like, at least do it in Florida. They did some in Florida, thank God. But the last one we went to was Vegas, which was great, by the way. And these retailer summits were great. They were, for one, it was awesome to hang out with all the other retailers. I made a bunch of friends. We had a good time doing those things. They were really fun. But they were also really informative, and you got to talk to the creators. But you know who would never, ever show up to retailer summits? Fucking Marvel. Marvel never showed up. They would send David Gabriel because they don't care. They never have cared. Even before Disney, they haven't given an F. But it's worse now. I thought Disney would actually improve this. DC has always been good to the retailers. Okay. They had Bob Wayne, who was a retailer liaison for a long time. He was a former comic shop owner. I don't think he's around anymore. But with this big boom, and these are old arguments, I know, but with this big boom in the movies, it's $1 billion industry. So the movies are making billions of dollars and comic shops are closing. What's behind that? Well, they don't really care about the comic shops, and it's up to the customers. If you really want a comic shop to be around, you got to support it. I think a lot of people like the idea of them, but I hear a lot of bad data about comic shops and comic book readers and how many there actually are. If digital was going to take off, it would have killed comic shops a long time ago, and it's not ever going to take off. I mean, it's a good aside.
Again, like it says, because people actually like collecting. There is I liken it kind of, collecting and hoarding go hand in hand. Really, they do. And I'm not saying that, collecting is a hoarding problem, but sometimes it is. It depends on the person.
What?
Yeah, I know. I don't know what you're talking about.
I can walk on my floor. I've got no collectibles. Well, okay.
Can you walk through your basement though?
A little bit if I go sideways like this.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
I can park a car down there now.
Hey, oh my God.
Can't walk down there. But yeah. Hey, there's only about, I don't know, 400 long boxes full of comics. But I'm going to open another store. Got to have stock.
Yeah, exactly. And so stock. The reason for that is, again, why comics aren't going to go away is because people actually like the tangible. It's you can't trade a digital. You can, but you're not going to make any money off of it. And it's not going to go up in value. It's just going to go down. And also you can pirate digital too. So, you can pirate. Yeah, sure. You can Xerox comics, which you're not supposed to. It's illegal. I'm going to say that right now. You're not supposed to pirate digital either because, again, it's illegal. But still.
Remember the CD-ROMs they came out with that I sold that had Spider-Man
unprotected
1 through 500, and none of them were protected. They were just PDF files that you could just. That's what's on Pirate Bay to this day.
Yeah,
and they were sold for $20, and you could get Spider-Man 1 through 500 in PDF form that you could print. You could freaking print your own comic book from. It was great. I still have them, by the way.
James Hayes says,
read that one.
Remember when Jeff Johns did the midnight release signing for the Rebirth launch and brought pizza for the fans it showed? Marvel creators might learn from that. Also, they might learn from when Jeff Johns was doing Blackest Night, and he was doing the premiere of that. He was actually at James Signs comics store. That's where I was getting mine signed. And I asked him point blank to his face, I go, "You're not going to have a white lantern just pop out of this, right?" At the end. No, not at all. It's not going to happen. Straight to my face. So that's all I'm going to say about that one. I'm not a big fan of Jeff Johns myself.
Okay, that's a how long resentment? Okay, for one, he can't tell you the truth because that's what happened at the end. Was he going to go, yep, okay, and then you're going to go on the internet going, there's going to be a White Lantern?
I wouldn't have done anything of the sort.
I found the guy to be very pleasant when I met
He's a pleasant guy. Yes, he is a nice guy, and some might say too
lied
nice.
to you. Donald Sterling lied to me and my dad when we were down there in 1983, and my dad went up to him and goes, "You're not going to move the Clippers to LA, are you?" And he's all, "No, love San Diego." I don't hold it against Donald Sterling's a lot of things. That's a true story, by the way. Okay, so let's.
What are your thoughts on Miss Marvel comics? Is what Halam899 says.
Which Miss Marvel? The Kamala Khan one. I haven't read any of them. I haven't read it.
I haven't either.
I like the look. I like the look of her. I have seen reviews. Okay, so I've seen good and bad reviews, and I think it's fine when it's kind of a kid-friendly comic aimed at kids. When any comic gets overtly political, when somebody becomes an ideologue, okay, on either side, I don't want like. It loses me. It just loses me. I hate seeing ideologues in my comics on either side. I like to be entertained.
It just seemed kind of boring. That's all. I mean, I've never found a storyline that's.
I'm not the biggest G. Willow Wilson fan, but that's just because of things I know. That's what sucks about part of the thing about being a retailer is you get to know people, and there's a lot. The vast majority of people are super, super nice and great. Some people are just not.
Halam says the Kamala Khan one.
Yeah. No, I don't know enough about it to have an opinion. I liked what was it? A couple of early on. I saw a couple of reviews that were positive. That's all I can say. I'll try it. Yeah, I will definitely read it.
The only thing I know about her is from that she's being, brought up now in the Spider-Man cartoons that are coming out now, and she's been popping up here and there, and also in the Avengers cartoons as well. And that's pretty much all I know her from, to tell you the truth. And I haven't seen any backstory on her, so I don't know what's going on.
She's got a weird power. She gets like big fists and stuff.
Big fists, and she can stretch and things like that. And that's about all I know.
Yeah. And here, I just want to give you guys an idea of what my shop used to look like. I'm going to share a picture here. It's from my Instagram. I don't know how it's going to turn out. There we go. Present to everybody. I forgot that girl's name, by the way. Yeah. So my shop was like, 1,100 square feet. It went straight down. It's an old salon. And I'm taking a picture from my front counter. So the back issues were on the right. Those were new release trades on the left. We had stuff lining the walls. Now up there in the back, by that Captain America shield, you can see some comic books on the wall. At that time, that was Avengers 1 through 500 was wrapped around my entire store. I have a full run. So I went up there in a big old ladder and put every single issue up on these little plastic shelves. And and we did that with Spider-Man. We had a Spider-Man event. Yep. We had 1 through 600 on display. We did it with X-Men, and we did it with Daredevil. So anytime there was like a movie, I would throw my collection, and I'm really big on having complete runs. I don't have them all anymore, but I have most. So yeah.
Did I mention that also some comic collectors have OCD as well?
I would say every comic collector has a little bit of OCD. Yeah. But you're a comic collector, so there you go.
Yeah, actually, I don't have any anymore. Well,
yeah, because you couldn't walk out of your house because you had to count to 5 and turn in a circle 3 times. Just kidding. That's terrible. That's terrible. Sorry. Okay, let's go down. Her comic is like World War II with Italy and Germany. I'm Pakistani, and I'm willing to play as one of her friends and our brothers. There you go. Cool. No, it's if they the whole plan was to bring the whole all new and all different. It was to bring them into the movies. That's all it was. I mean, people can have weird conspiracy theories about it, and it did turn into something quite awful. But the original plan was, hey, let's make these new characters. Let's have legacy characters so we can recast people in the movies without replacing anybody. We can get really cheap young actors, and we could, farm all our Disney, these children that we create in our studios for the Disney TV shows.
They grow in their labs.
Cast them. Yeah, Zac Efron, from the Zac Efron mold or something. I guess he's a Disney kid. Wasn't he in High School? Oh, that's not Disney. Was High School the Musical Disney? Yeah, I'm sorry, I do not know.
Yeah, it was.
It was? Okay.
Yep.
So that's what the whole point was to, and then the election happened and everybody thought, oh, all of a sudden, because I look at my Facebook feed and people got the impression that people cared about other people's political opinions, especially comic book creators. No, we don't. We really don't. We don't care what a guy who sits around and has a great freaking job drawing all day, which is very hard, by the way. If you got to be talented, but it is actual hard work because you got to pump that crap out on time. And, you just don't feel artistic. Dennis and I are both artists on the side, and you just don't feel it every day, but you got to put it. And I know art's hard, but it can be.
Yeah. As one of my art teachers said, he goes, if you're going into this for a living like an animator, there's going to be days you don't want to draw. And guess what? You're going to have to draw. Work, slave.
I know, it's terrible. So I don't want to tell my whole business plan, but my suggestion to save a comic shop, the crowdfunding thing is very smart to keep yourself afloat. Okay. People do Kickstarters and stuff. There's nothing wrong with, hey, go support. And that's why, again, the link will be in the description. I want you to support Leaf, whatever he decides to do. Please support him because he's just a really good guy. He's just a super nice guy. I want to see him sell comics till he dies at the age of 175.
And James, I'm sorry.
Go on. No.
James Hayes was asking what percentage of your customers were female?
That's a great question because that whole 40% of comic book readers is total BS of our women. And you see how that actual for that survey, how that question was worded, it was more like, do you like comics and stuff around comics? Now that being 40-50%, I could totally believe. We were in San Francisco by a school. We
two schools.
We had a lot of I'd say James might have been the only person who had more female customers than I did, and the percentage was 25% maybe. And that was
I'd say like
highest level.
It was pretty up there,
pushing 30. But and I based it on my subscribers. So and that's not counting the people who just walked in. The guy who owned the store before me, who I thought was a nice guy, but kind of creepy. And and not a lot of. So I had to fight really hard to get women in there. And my wife also was in there working with me. I also had both my kids grew up in the comic store. It was just a really happy, friendly place. It's also in a weird location in San Francisco. But 28%. And that was, it took me years to build that though, because it started with like 0%.
Yeah, as I put it, the guy who owned Gary's store before, the front window was kind of like closed off. They had these really small lights, so everything was darkly lit. And when Gary went in there and started moving, one of the things I even said too is like, dude, you got to open that front window and just let some light in. And once he did, it's like, you got rid of the dank. Hey.
Yeah, I know, right? And then my mantra was like, don't ever put posters in your window. I know light is bad for comics, but you know what? Sacrifice a few comics for the light. You want light to come in. You want, I'm going to try to, sorry, I'm doing two things. You want people to see inside the store. And it's tough in San Francisco because most stores have big old gates over them, which you need to have, or, 1/4-inch glass. And we're going to invite our other co-host John to come in here real quick. Oh, sorry, I can't type and talk at the same time. But yeah,
I can talk for you while we're doing this. So yeah, I mean, he uncovered the windows. He moved the counter out from, there was a display counter, if I remember correctly, in front of the window at the time. And it was just really blocked off. And by moving all that stuff out in front and having some light come in and changing the lighting structure so it was bright, kind of like what you see behind me here, brightness. So what you see in his room, brightness, helped a lot. And it didn't look like a porn like someplace you go and buy porn, which a lot of that stuff that was in there before was porn.
There was a ton. Yeah. I can share the story why I actually stopped selling the porn. Is I caught a dude jerking it in my bathroom, walked in, he didn't lock the door, didn't know the guy was in there, and I was actually had Indigo, my oldest son, holding his hand to go pee, and there's a guy taking the skin boat to Tuna Town or whatever the hell it is.
Wow.
Sorry. I know. Here,
slapping little Johnny behind the German helmet.
Yeah, there you go. Present to everybody. So that's the other angle of my store.
That's a scary picture right there.
Isn't it though? That's a handsome devil. What are you talking
about? Dude, that's a freaking was that taken with a fisheye?
Yeah, I was taken with a fisheye. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
That's kind of creepy a little bit.
Really?
Just a bit. I don't know why.
Likes it. I don't know. There we go. Dennis is intimidated by my good looks. I understand.
Stephen J says comic shops are the best hangouts, not to mention always some to play in some nice card games. Someone to play nice card games with. And he also says nice shop, by the way.
Thank you very much. I adored it. Yeah, the thing with the comic store is my philosophy was, and I think a lot of guys got Leaf's shop, by the way, this is no shade on him, is very nice looking shop, and he puts a lot of effort on the inside, and that a lot of shops don't do that. I think comic shops are kind of a destination thing, so you got to make it worth the trip. And I had people like driving across 2 bridges to get to us, fighting San Francisco traffic, or taking a K line, or taking 2 trains, or worse, driving to my shop. And I had parking. I had free parking. I was probably the only shop in San Francisco that had free parking across the street. And yeah, at first it was dank and it looked like crap. And I had to kind of stick with that for a couple of years, and it bugged the crap out of me until I had some more money to put into it. And then, I learned we did everything on our own. We painted, we put up our own slat. I laid that freaking carpet in there. Me and Roger laid that carpet in there. And that was tile. That was carpet tile, by the way. Yeah. So we had to put it down piece by piece. I learned a lot of things, but that's what you have to do with your shop. You have to minimize costs, but you also make it worth the destination, and you have to have a wide variety of stuff. You can't just have indie books or just have new releases. I always call those the newsstand stores.
Yes.
Which they're basically, you're a bookstore. Then be a bookstore. Be a bookstore with comics. And I think that's another way you could survive, is like be a used bookstore with comic books. If you don't want to do back issues, I think back issues are really important with a comic book.
Yeah, especially for, again, like we said, collectibles, the completest, you always want to have back issues. Jamie's store that we talk about here, Southern California Comics, has a huge back issue collection, and you see people there all the time just combing through them. And you really need to, and yes, you need to do the card games as well. Card games are a must now for comic book stores, especially just with the tie-ins. James asked, what comics did your female customers buy?
Oh man, mainly X-Men, Runaways, Robin, Batman. Very big with our female audience, by the way. And pretty much it was pretty easy to profile, certain types of customers to what they would like. But for the most part, they would pick up the occasional saga, but the same crap that everybody else would get. Sorry to call it crap, but there was no book that just women picked up.
Yeah, I kind of liken it to the questions in The Walking Dead, that they'd ask everybody. You ask, say, what's your favorite TV show? What do you like to read? All that kind of stuff when you're, trying to find out what people liked. And you go, okay, how about this? And you give them a pitch of the book, and you do it in like a sentence or two. And you go, here's what this book is. I don't know. Okay, well, how about this book? And you guide them towards this. And, once you find out what people liked, and that's what it got to be almost formulaic in a way sometimes.
Yeah, you got to have a good instinct for it too. You just got to
Yeah.
be good with people. You got to be a talker. You got to be able to talk. You got to be enthusiastic, and you have to have really broad taste. And I broadened my taste. I kind of always had a broad taste, but I had to broaden it even more when I opened the shop. I only like certain DC titles, and I became a huge DC fan in opening my shop and reading pretty much everything. So yeah, I read 5 to 10 comic books every day for 10 years. And
I'm just going to welcome a few people aboard here.
Sure.
Say hi to Steven, to Ricky. Hey. And then also we have our other co-host that just joined us, John.
Hey,
John,
how's it going, guys?
John, what's up?
Like in real life, I stopped by the Comic Outpost later than everyone else and entered the conversation halfway through.
What's up?
Pretty much, yeah.
How's it going, guys?
Doing all right. We've been talking for a little while.
Yeah, I went on my diatribe about like why shops are closing. I'm pretty pissed about Marvel. I think Marvel should do something about it. I know they won't. I think Disney and Marvel should do an emergency summit, should offer a return program, something to save shops.
The problem is that we have this thing where the creator, like the studio creators, not the artistic creators, have a different agenda than the actual stores that are selling, like the retailers, right? Like they are fine if like everything goes digital and like sales go down a little bit, but the marketing for the movies helps, like the new store, the new Wolverine comic book has a little buzz because it's a female Wolverine and now everyone's going to see the Wolverine movie next year. Like they have a different agenda than the actual retailers. The retailers want to give a good product to people to buy. And so like they're caring about two very different things. And I agree, like that has created this just awful, like short-sighted problem where the product isn't like the actual product of the comic book and trade isn't up to the standards of what it used to be when they actually mattered, right? And so like this, they don't care as much about the storytelling as much as they care about the PR, like how many news shows pick up the release of Captain America whatever where he becomes a Nazi, like they want the buzz more than they want the like long-lasting subscriber. And that's just created this horrible situation where people aren't buying as many comics, the stores aren't able to push the content as easily because it's not as good of content, and it's become this mess, really.
Well, yeah, and it's also, you have competing of time as well with like, internet, movies, video games, all that kind of stuff. And when you start increasing the prices of a comic book to like, $4.99, $5.99 and up, and you're not upping your game and the content of it.
Yep.
And people start going, well, I don't need this.
Right.
Especially, when I can pay that same price that I'm paying for this one book at $7.99 that I can pay for Netflix.
Right.
Yeah. James Hayes, will Disney stop using local comic shops and sell all their comic lines through local Disney stores, like in the shopping malls? Actually, that was something we threw out it when we did our podcast the day the sale went down many, many years ago. And I think the answer is yes. I know for a fact, and I got this from a pretty high source. I used to do a little teeny bit of work for Disney on D23. Okay. There was a show called The Armchair Archivists, and I was friends with one of the guys on that show. And I actually got to sit in an office and talk to like the CEO of D23 and we talked about, I asked him, I'm like, what do you guys, you're got Marvel now. And what do you think of Diamond? And they're like, we want to get rid of them as soon as we can. That was his answer. So yes, they want to distribute their own comic books. The problem is they probably wanted to, and they were probably full bore ready to go. And they realized the actual logistics of it were like way too expensive. And they're like, oh no, we're cool with Diamond. Never mind.
And not only that, they'd have to open up a lot more Disney stores in rural areas and things like that don't have them. And because people aren't going to drive.
Yeah, I see them like over time more going to just like a digital only subscription model for comics, just like they're doing for everything else. Like maybe not in the immediate future, but I feel like they'll print like collector editions of things and sell them in the Disney stores, and then just distribute everything else digitally because it's so much cheaper for them to do so.
That's if comics just become an aside thing. Like you're never going to make enough money off digital to hire good artists or writers. So if it becomes like a Bazooka Joe thing where you get a free comic in your bubble gum, that's what comics will be reduced to. Then they'll be digital only, and nobody will buy that.
Yeah.
So I have trouble. I think comics would die before they would go exclusively digital. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that that's a good bet. I think that it's like obviously not a sure thing, but I think that that's a pretty pretty good bet that that's the case.
Brandon Harvey asked, do you think
Brandon Hanvey? That is Brandon Hanvey.
Excuse me, not Harvey.
That is former Comic Outpost customer, Mr. Geek Out himself, Brandon Hanvey. What is up, Brandon?
Do you think the book channel market will eclipse the direct market in the next few years?
It could. I think, yeah. I think so. The direct markets, we just lost 6 stores in a year here in California. So I think anything's possible.
More than that.
The direct market is, as Brandon has heard every one of my arguments, the poor guy. It was great. Brandon, I love you, by the way. He was a great customer and a very good friend, and taught pretty much everything I learned on Photoshop was from him. So, and I think the direct market is a double-edged sword. I think it prolonged the life of the comic book industry longer than maybe it should have been, but it also kept comic books from going back into 7-Elevens, which I've always been a proponent of. I think, it just stopped. The sales became more real, but it effed the market eventually, because comics used to be returnable. You just rip the cover off, and I know they don't do that anymore because magazines are dead. But I just think I think it's his cancer. I think it's a slow death, and we're about to go into hospice, and it sucks. That's why I'm doing this. We are doing this dumb little video to do our part, use our powers for good, to get through to maybe one person, to go like spend a few more bucks at a comic store to help. I don't know. I think it's too late. I'm sorry. It sucks. There's models that'll work. But I think it'll be like a vinyl store. I don't think you'll be getting many, like John said, they'll stop making comics and you'll just sell old stuff, which I'm okay with.
James Hayes also asked, if you opened a new shop, would you offer mail order subscriptions?
Yes. I would say no to nothing. I would do online, mail order, gaming. I will do it all.
He would even send me pictures of himself too, because he does that.
Okay, I will. Yeah, but you got to ask, though. They won't be unsolicited, I promise.
Exactly.
That would be inappropriate.
And you'd have to pay for them too.
Oh, no. I'll send them for free.
You get the pose that you want.
Yeah.
Wearing that Harley Quinn outfit,
Hey, that was just once, and that was supposed to be between us.
Hey, I paid a lot of money for that, okay?
Remember that Harley Quinn? We had a great story. If maybe I'll put the video on our thing. And the sad part is the girl is dead now, which is very sad. Mm-hmm. She had some kind of Hodgkin's. Yeah. I can't even remember her name, but she came in on a random day, and she had a blue mohawk, and she was like all bubbly and, oh, I love your store and everything. And I cosplay as, nobody said cosplay, by the way, back then. I dressed up as Harley Quinn. I'm like, sure you do. Show me. She ran home, came back, full Harley Quinn costume, makeup. It looked perfect. And sang me the Harley Quinn Joker song, or whatever the
Happy birthday song.
Yes. And I got it all on video. And that was one of the weird things of owning in a comic store. So you meet somebody for 5 minutes, dare them to wear a Harley Quinn costume, and they roll in, and they sing you song. Oh, and she brought her friends, and they were dressed up too. This was, again, there was no cons or anything. It was a Thursday in February or something like that.
Yep.
We had Poison Ivy show up. It was weird, man, but it was funny.
Brandon also asked, what do you think of Brian's book reading club?
I think it's a good idea. I had not heard of it. I think it needs to get out a little more, but I think it's a really good idea.
Explain that to us. I don't know what this is.
He's got a book club. It's basically a book club for comics.
Which Brian is this?
Brian Hibbs. Brian Hibbs
from,
from Comics Experience, who purchased my store, and it's also the Comics Experience Outpost. And they do a book club. I don't know all the details of it. I read it, a year ago, when JJ showed it to me, and I think it was a good idea. I think he needs to get the word out. If I was Brian, I hate to give out my ideas, but I will. I would have a YouTube channel like yesterday, and I would be on that YouTube channel every day. That's part of the reason why we started this whole thing, is like, it's going to go into something else eventually someday. And I'd be on that, reviewing comic books, interviewing talent, talking to other retailers, interviewing customers. I do my top 5 every Wednesday. I put out something every day. I'd read a comic, and I love Comic Book Girl 19 is going to be doing a Watchmen, a book club here pretty soon. I'm going to watch every episode of that. I would do that.
I would live stream the store as you used to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my God. If live broadcasting was available when I owned that show, we tried every way to do it. There was live stream back then, and we used live stream. But God, in 2011 and 12, we were live streaming from the Comic-Con floor. And yeah, it was good times, man. But that's what I'd be doing. I'd be on the internet every day. What do you
remember
think,
how much harder it was back then to like find Wi-Fi, to like use the apps to send your stuff live and record the audio, and like you would lose half of the audio because they were unstable programs like the free like Audacity back in the day. Remember how hard that was to do that? That's crazy.
Oh, I remember, it was a big pain in the ass. I live streamed almost all of that 24-hour comic book day.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Hey, Steven is taking off. He has some work to go do. See you, Steven.
Get to work.
Yeah, get back to work.
Steven, thanks for joining in. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Ricky also says, I think comic book shops are slowly dying. I found a website that has most comic books ever created. Seems quicker access. Yes, it does. But as we said earlier, a lot of people like that tangibility. There's also no collecting when you have, I should say there's collecting when you have the digital, but it doesn't increase in value at all. Whereas when you have that physical copy, that actually goes up depending on what the comic is.
Oh, dude, yeah, just like the holding I'm grabbing a comic book, right? And I want to go back to your point, Dennis, of the pricing, because I actually had a thought on that. That is one of the biggest problems. What he just said, it's just, not everybody's got a ton of money, but I want to read a bunch of stuff. So I think you do them both. You make it, you got to work this out with the stores, because the stores have been blocking a lot of digital comics. They've been there. It's written in the agreement. That's why your digital comics at first, when they come out, are the same price as your regular comics. Otherwise, I think digital would have taken off if it was like $1 a comic.
Yeah, if they're like 99 cents a comic, oh, that'd be
so if you work out with the stores, like, hey, we'll do a subscription service like Netflix. We'll give you all, like YouTube Red, we'll give you all a piece of it, a little bit of it. We'll kick it back to you guys. And that way it's a big fucking commercial for real comics. I think a lot of people who are going to read digital would just read digital anyway. If you're into digital, why in the hell would you buy a book? But I think it's a free commercial for your comic. I love the holding a comic book and the feeling, the bag and the smell. And yes, I'm holding the Max. Love this.
Displaying it,
like displaying it and just looking at the art. But the paper, like, why do we have to print on this stupid? That was one of the first questions I asked when I started the stories again. It was like, why did we stop printing on pulp? What's the deal? And the word I got was pulp used to come in these big rolls. They used to use the leftover from the newspapers, and they just don't make those printers anymore. I guess they were massively huge. But the Diversity in Comics has come out with a video. The Alternative Comics prints on pulp again, and their books are $1.99. I think the industry should overnight go back to that. For one, your comics would become more valuable because they would get destroyed easier. And what makes a valuable comic? High demand, low print run. There's also no moms throwing out people's comic collections anymore. That's what made comics valuable. And yeah, I think that the first thing the industry could do was make comics cheaper. Now, DC has really tried doing that, but I would change the paper. I'd put and I'm not, Diversity in Comics has done an entire video on it. Go watch it. And he's not the first person. A bunch of retailers have said it at retailer meetings, and we've always gotten poo-pooed. They're like, nope, we can't. We got to do it this way, because they sent most of the comic books out to other countries to get printed. It's cheaper to print them in other countries and then ship them back, which is stupidity. There's got to be a way to make it cheaper here. I don't know.
Halam899 also says, will X-Men save Marvel Comics? No, they will actually save the world, but they will not save Marvel Comics.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, in what way, right? Like the X-Men is going to probably inject the MCU with a little bit of Viagra for a short period of time when you get those characters crossing over with the Avengers or whatever, right? So I think that there'll be a small injection of creative vigor. I think in the short term. But like it's all like about the creators and the storytelling. I think that you could like Guardians showed you could take a very little known property and turn it into a huge mega success if you do it right. So like I don't know. I think that in the short term, yeah, it'll invigorate a few things, but in the long term, I don't think it's really going to have a very lasting effect.
It's going to spike it. That's all it's going to do. You'll have one little data point that bloop, and then it's going to disappear.
Now, yeah, because I don't think X-Men were the reason the sales went down. No. I mean, I think he's talking about also in comics and movies. Marvel again. That was Marvel's decision to bury X-Men and the Fantastic Four, and the guy who, I mean, Axel Alonso. I don't know if he's the one who made that decision, but whoever did should be fired. That's terrible, and that hurts retailers. So a petty squabble over an IP. Again, hurts retailers, hurts other people. There's consequences. Arguing with your customer on Twitter, no matter how vile that person is, just block them. Okay, just freaking block them. But actively arguing and insulting fans when there are none is ridiculous. Okay, it's all that stuff's got to be. It's what John said. There's different agendas. The creators don't give a shit either. Okay, they don't care about the retailers or their sales. They all want to get scripts in Hollywood. They all want to be rolled up to Hollywood and be a part of that party. And they all do. Why did Bendis go to DC? Is it to write Superman or to maybe be part of the cinematic universe there? He got a taste of it with Marvel, got taken off the group, and that got under his skin. And I know that for a fact. And the creators I know all want a piece of that pie because they think it's some huge payday, which really isn't. It really isn't.
All you get paid is a lump sum, and you never get any more money off of it after that.
Yep.
And it's not that big of a lump sum either.
No, it's not. I think reality show people get more per episode. It's like maybe $30,000 an episode, John, something like that. A creator doesn't get that.
No.
Per episode. They probably get, I'm guessing, maybe 15, 20 grand up front. And if it's a huge hit on the back end, they might get another 100 grand. That's not, I mean, you're not retiring on that. So, it's good if you got a lot of IPs out there, but it's this for fun. There's no money in comics. It's because we love it. Okay. And it's being chipped away and it just won't exist anymore. I mean, all things end, baseball cards were a huge industry for a long time and they hated themselves, they were bigger than comics.
Halam asks, what are your thoughts on hundreds of unsold comics?
Hundreds of unsold comics? What are my thoughts?
It's in his basement.
They're in my basement. Oh, no. What's hundreds of unsold comics? What is it? Is it like a thing or like I'm not understanding
he's basically saying like, people not
printing
buying.
too many.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry. Blonde, sorry. Good answer, Dennis. They're right below me, about 5 feet. It's good, but potential future dollar bins, which is good. I used to pass them out too. Again, I tried everything. So when a superhero movie came out, I would put business cards in my comic books, go opening night, and I wouldn't even ask the theater's permission. I just effing did it. And Dennis and I, or Roger, or whoever, my wife, John, would have a stack of comics. And we just run up and down the theater and just hand them out. Just give it with my business card. And we got customers from that. And that's the kind of crap. But for one, it's fun. It's fun to give away a free comic book in a movie theater because for one, for like 2 minutes, you become the man or the woman. You're like, everybody's all, right on. And then they drop your business card and forget about you. But,
read the book in the previews and
right.
Exactly. And it kept everyone quiet in the theater too.
It kind of did.
Apple Crow, hey, what's going on? Apple Crow just showed up. So
that's the funny thing though. Like I got into comics based on the crappy ones. Like the comics that I remember reading when I was young or when I got back into it in college were like this really crappy Iceman miniseries and Revenge of the Sidekicks, like one of I don't know, like a really strange spy. Like these are all dollar bin books, and that's what got me into it in the first place. So like that's what we're going to lose, right? Like comics has become and is going to continue to become worse at just being like one big crossover event after another, these big like blockbuster movie events in comics over and over again. And I think kind of what Marvel did poorly, but what it was trying to do was make this stories like smaller, but it just focused on the wrong stuff. So it's just like, there's always a bad instinct mixed with a good instinct, I think. And it would be nice to have, comics kind of slow down again into like the storytelling. I'm all about story, right? So like I want to see that. Like I know a lot of people read comics who are just like they want those splash pages, right? Like the art is what they read them for. And so, you know, everyone has different things, but I just wish they'd slow it down a little bit and stop making it all about the big blockbuster. I think it's hurting them.
Hey,
agreed. Oh my God, agreed.
Just a serious answer to your question about the hundreds of comic book. There's actually some of the retailers actually, or I shouldn't say the retailers, the wholesale distributors had a buyback deal for some of them, so they'd buy back unused or unbought comics depending on how much you had. Not all of them did, but some of them did. So that actually is how you dealt with a lot of that.
That was eons ago.
Yes.
Do they like recycle them or something? Like what do they do with the extras?
They probably recycle them.
Yeah, they recycle them. I mean, now
donate them or something.
Yeah. Now you just put them in mystery bags and sell them for $5 a pop.
You can become part of the library program if you're one of those lucky shops, and you know you got to loan them money for 6 months, but you get a big fat paycheck every 6 months if you're part of the library program. There's tons of ways to make money on the side. The thing is, comic shop retailers also have themselves to blame, and that includes me, because you're the voice of the comics. Okay. So, and we tend to complain a lot. And some of us are not the hardest workers in the world. I was not one of those. I busted my ass in the shop. I worked 14 hours a day. Sometimes I burned myself out pretty hardcore. So it's a job that it used to attract us. I think the newer retailers are a lot different. They're a lot more savvy, but some people, it's not all, but some people got in this job thinking it's just going to be this easy job where I buy some comics and I sell them. It's like, no. And that's also just being an entrepreneur and being a businessman. So many people want to, you hear the term be your own boss. A lot of people don't want to work for somebody, but they don't want to be their own boss. Okay. There's a big difference. Being your own boss, when you go and open your own business, if you're looking to work less, do not open your own business, please. Go work for somebody else. It's so much easier. You don't have to think about jack shit. You don't have to think about your taxes. You got a safety net. There's unemployment. There's all kinds of benefits out there for you. You go out and work for yourself. You got no benefits. You get no unemployment. You get no disability. There's no safety net. Your ass it's all on you. You know, and there's a lot of reward in that though, because when you do well, you're like, wow, something I made and I created. And you know, if you're into it, to be creative and to have fun and have kind of your own thing, that's the best way to go into it. No, don't go into it like, and this is just, you know, my wife is very successful. I was okay for 10 years. Both of our mindsets when we went in were, I just want to have fun. I want to have my own playground. If I make a few bucks, cool. You know, and that tends to work out pretty well. If you go in just to make money and you're not really passionate about something, I don't know. Sometimes that works, but yeah, I don't know.
Not often. I mean, like you have to be a very specific type of person for that to work. And like, I think the three of us are creatives more than anything.
Like I told Roger when we were doing that very first Image Con, Roger was kind of shy about, you know, going out there and presenting himself. And I'm like, dude, you got to be, especially at conventions, you need to be almost like P.T. Barnum in a way, just barking out there and just do the crazy shit that you would see other people doing at these cons to lure people into your booth so they buy some of their stuff. That's, you know, and, you know, I remember, what was it? That one Comic-Con, remember the one guy that was always yelling 50% off comics, and we yell back at him? He was yelling all the time. And we just got tired of it. So we start yelling back. We'd answer him with different stuff. And it got to be a game.
No.
For 8 hours.
How much was it off comics again? You know?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And we got people coming in because they start laughing. They're like, okay, that's actually kind of funny. And then they come in and wander in and take a look at stuff and start buying stuff. And you kind of have to do that. You have to have fun with it. And again, it depends on what medium you're working with at the time. But yeah, you got to tailor it to that. Brandon asks here, have the movies become too popular, i.e. people would rather see a few movies a year to see the stories rather than having to go each week or month?
Yes, absolutely. Good question, Brandon. Very good question. Yeah. And it also, you've got your realization of the superhero. So the comic books were always the best place to go to see your superhero realized. It's all the action from it and the art. But now that you see Captain America, Chris Evans, kicking ass and throwing a shield on the big screen in 3D and stuff, it kind of takes away a little bit from the action of a comic book. I'm into the art, the sequential art. I enjoy story and art equally, but it's got to be good art to hook me. But there's something, if you're just going into read comics I'm just a comic fan because I like action and superheroes and stuff. Well, with all the damn TV and movies now, you kind of get that fix, and video games even more because you're involved, you're in it. So video games have been the biggest killer of comic books more than anything, period. Because it's taken away from that demographic. And they're also, you've only got so much money and they are kind of expensive, but they're also like interactive comics. That's what they are. So
I think too, I mean, for me personally, some of the stuff that's taken away from my comic book reading time, because it's also a time management thing, are like Audible audiobooks, podcasts that I listen to now about the TV. Like instead of like watching TV and then going and like reading a comic book, I watch TV and then go podcast about TV or listen to a podcast about TV. So like, I feel like as far as like time management is concerned, we've started getting cheaper options to use your time than to go to a store, buy a comic, read the comic. And like, it takes longer and more money to like do the purchasing of it than it takes to actually read the book half the time. And it's just like, that's, I think, becomes a problem over a long period of time. Yeah, especially absolutely. When your comic is dependent on people being invested in a like long arc of a story. Like if you lose them at any point, they're hesitant to come back because they've missed stuff, right? So
like a 3-year break between issues 3 and 4.
Yeah, well, there's that too.
But I mean, there's the argument that if it becomes a chore to read a 24-page comic book that's probably got like 3 pages. Now, some books are very wordy, and I'm not a fan of that.
Oh, I like those. They take
no. You gotta. There's a sweet spot for that. Like Alan Moore's fine; he can get away with it. But some people are just blah blah blah. That's all it is. It's just white noise. It's terrible.
If you ever want to read something good about that, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you on that, but Eric Larson on Facebook, he actually breaks it down quite a bit in his Facebook posts, as Eric Larson, who does Savage Dragon and also runs Image, or is part owner of Image Comics. So
when he's on his meds, he's all right. He gets a little wacky.
Yeah,
I'm on his Facebook too. He's a little, him and Mark Waid. They need to like maybe share stuff with a therapist and not with people on Facebook. That would just be my little suggestion there. TMI, guys. But there's the sweet spot but if it becomes a chore to read 22, people are reading less, or they're reading a bunch right now. They're reading, read comics, or reading a lot on the internet, reading some news and stuff. So it's just becoming a chore. Like I have to make time. You're right, John. Like my time management is my comic book reading time, which is usually before I go to bed, or if I'm bored. But my go-to is not a comic book. That used to be my first go-to, is I'll just pick up a comic book. And now it's like, I'm going to dick around on the internet for a little while. Then I'm going to pick out a comic book, and I love them. So you're right. It's just, reading is hard.
The Ben Talk says the Avengers movies have done well interpreting the comics, but the X-Men Uncanny on the printed page still is so much better than the movies.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, and you got to remember, Ben Talks, one person has had a stranglehold on the X-Men movie since they started, and that was Bryan Singer. Two people. But the majority is Bryan Singer, and quite honestly, he is milquetoast and doesn't know how to do action scenes, and that's where it's been suffering. Whereas the Avengers, you had Kevin Feige, Joss Whedon, Jon Favreau. Who am I missing?
Russo brothers.
Yeah, the Russo brothers.
Well, I'm with Cap.
Exactly. All these people have inputted into the Avengers, so you've actually had people collaborating and coming up with a better Avengers than what we've been seeing in the comics on screen, and the X-Men have just kind of stagnated because they haven't had that, kind of interaction. They've only had one voice, and not a very good voice at that. Now I think we're actually going to be seeing a lot more, as Gary and I talk about. Legion is awesome. I mean, just awesome. It's what X-Men should be. And, it's, and I think Gifted is going to get there too. Now that Bryan Singer is taking off of EP there.
Yeah. I wonder, now that Matt Nix is like, it's his show, I look forward to that, and it's getting another season. And it was actually, dude, it was really good. And towards the end, the Cuckoos, the Stepford
Cuckoos. The Stepford Cuckoos.
Badass. Yes. Badass. So badass. Brian Smart says, in my area, there used to be 5 comic shops. Now there are none. Where are you again, Brian? Sorry. That's becoming a thing. Now, if you got a little capital and you work hard and you have a side hustle, like I said, now would be a time to get into the industry. I know for a comic shop, people are going, what? But it's like you buy low. And like, if you could find, what worked for me was I bought a comic shop that was kind of fledgling, and it had a built-in clientele. It needed a lot of work, but it had that built-in clientele, and that's the hardest thing to get. And that was already there. And he overcharged me, but I was willing to pay because I really wanted it. And plus it was a shop in San Francisco. Come on. And you want to have a good foundation. I would look around and maybe see if somebody's got a good lease deal, or at least they would sell you their clientele, and maybe you move the shop to some, they want a low rent too. Low rent, like Leafs rent. What did they say Leafs rent was at Mission?
Like 15,000, something like that.
$1,000. You guys want to know what my rent was in San Francisco? Because I had a sweet old man owner who was like just John Toda, bless his heart, man. $1,000 a month.
Yep.
For 10 years. That's what I paid. $1,000 a month. What was that?
That's unheard of now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was unheard of then. It actually
then too, yeah.
Pissed off the dentist upstairs because he said it was hurting the market, but oh well. And that's what Brian was paying. I'm sure it's gone up now that the lease has changed, and I think John Toda's son took over. But no, John was just super nice to me and didn't raise my rent, and he did. It was like, it started out at 900 and it ended at 1,000. So I think over 10 years he raised it like 4 times at $25 a pop. Amazing. And he apologized for it when he did it, which was I'm so sorry, Gary. He sounded like a Kissinger, by the way. Oh, Gary, the rent is due.
Halam asks, are you going to watch the live action Teen Titans TV show? Yes, we are.
Hell yeah. We will be covering it. I can't wait. I am a big Teen Titans fan. So, yeah.
Brian Smart says the comic shop industry died with the advent of digital comics as well as the movies. And most kids under 30 years of age would rather watch a movie or go online as opposed to physically reading.
That's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true. I got 2 kids, and they read a lot, but it's on a screen. Logan, like, he if you get a kid early enough, he likes comic books, but he also was brought up in a comic store. So he's a big, he likes to draw them. He likes to create his own graphic novels. Yeah. So, but yeah, he's an outlier. Most kids don't. You're right. My older son, who also grew up in a comic store, hates them.
Oh, really? Indigo doesn't like him?
No, Indigo can't. But his memory of it is, hey, Indigo, pick up that long box and help me and your mom. So he was working. Yeah. So he's like, oh, F comics.
Halam also talks about Injustice 2, that he really loves that. And yes, I love Injustice 2 as well. It's a great game. I play that all the time. And, especially good in getting some aggression out. I've finally leveled up my Batman to level 20. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, I played that game so hard. I leveled up most of my characters all the way, and then it was in a guild that we were in like the top 50 at one point within the first few months of the game coming out. But then I just stopped playing because I went on to a different game. But yeah, that game is just so, and I'm not even good at fighting games. Like I just like got good at that one because I liked it so much. So I love those Injustice games are so much fun.
I actually bought Hellboy, the Hellboy add-on. So
yeah,
I'm a Hellboy fan.
Hell yeah! I think
How
the
much
Ninja
was it?
Turtles he was saying,
It was like $3, I think, is what it was.
Oh, that's not bad.
No.
I might play it now. It sounds fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Like 30, and you get like everything. So there's like another like 20 characters that come out and all that stuff. It's good.
Yeah, especially since it's cheap now. It's been out for over a year, so you should be able to. You should get it. It's a lot of fun, Gary.
Oh yeah, I usually stay away from because they're a time suck for me, and I get way too obsessed in them. City of Heroes. I know we're going way back with City of Heroes, but I was like,
City of Heroes, yeah,
dude, I was ignoring people in the store. They would come in, I'll be all, whatever, go steal whatever you want.
I remember when you were playing that. I do remember that now.
Oh,
yeah.
Dude, I would not stop playing.
I remember I walked out with a couple of long boxes too.
Sure you did. I didn't notice.
Rob you blind.
They're probably crappy comics anyway. So
they were actually down with some figures.
You can have all my second printing Abe Sapiens, and which I love, by the way. That was the only. Listen, Dennis had that. Oh my god, his saver was the biggest pain in the ass because he was always canceling stuff. Always canceling.
I would change out. Yeah, I know.
Every second. So I'm like, I'll just keep Hellboy in, and then everything else will be interchangeable.
Yeah.
Like this doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah, I got bored with stuff. I'm like, that doesn't do it for me. And I'm like, oh, this actually looks pretty good. Nope, that doesn't do it for me either.
Yep. He's one of those subscribers. Oh. John was good. John was easy. X-Men, Iceman's in it.
Yeah, Iceman's in it. X-Men, Teen Titans, maybe.
And he buys the whole stack though. He was such a good customer.
Brandon asks, in your future store, will you have more manga?
Yeah. Most definitely. I had none, so having some would be more.
Having one, yes.
Yeah, the big thing for the future new store is we have a lot more square footage. It's going to be a destination place, so it's not going to be in San Francisco, and it could be close. Right now, I have a 5. I'm within my non-compete. We're on the last year of my non-compete. It will have more square footage, and it will have more stuff, and it'll be way more diverse as far as products. But it'll also have some cool add-ons too. It'll also have a barber chair.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
See, I always thought it'd be interesting to have a comic shop that did some other things, like either like a small cafe, like a very stripped down cafe and reading corner for trade paperbacks, like that people could trade in, or like I was thinking about opening a store up in Tahoe for a while, and I thought it'd be cool to like sell like snowboarding gear that was like branded to, like get local artists to do stuff. And I just feel like you have to do more than just like pick out some stuff on Diamond and throw it on a rack, I think is the main thing. Like House of Secrets down here does a lot. Like they're like artists that own the store, and they do a lot of really interesting things. And I don't think that they're having many like cash flow issues, right? Like they seem fine. Like maybe they do, but they seem fine. So I just think like you just get like Gary said, side hustle is a big deal when you're selling comic books. You need to have a lot of stuff going on.
Yep. Also keep it small. Don't hire anybody. Don't get employees, because there's that whole thing of, you either want to be a really big business or a really small one, but you don't want to be a medium one. And I know these guys have heard it before, but I will run it by myself. I might get a game guy to come in and like get some kid who knows about it and can run it.
Run RPGs in the back, for
peanuts, and that's it. But yeah, it'd be run by me.
Yeah, I'll say right now, volunteers, Gary, for games. Volunteers.
There you go. Well,
that's what everyone else does.
Nerdrotic will be running out of this shop too, so it will be there. But It's 1 a.m. UK time. Man, it's late, and we actually got to kind of roll. We can wrap this up because we have to recap Star Trek Discovery.
We have to watch and then recap Star Trek.
Now, this was impromptu, guys, and thank you guys for showing up for this little passion project. And again, it's like support your local comic store. If you're down in San Diego, go to On Comic Ground, give Marilyn some shekels, and definitely go visit Jamie at Southern California Comics. If you're in LA, House of Secrets is the shit. Go check it out. It's a great store. If you're up here in San Francisco, go see Leaf at Mission Comics and Art. Go to James at Isotope. Go to Brian at Comics Experience or Comics Experience Outpost. Check out Two Cats. Don't know the owner of that store. There's Whatever down in the Castro. Those guys are really good. There's some great shops. There's Elusive Arts, run by my friend Anna down the peninsula a little ways, down near Los Gatos, I believe it is. I forgot what. I haven't been there. I just know her. I met her at Retailer Summits. We're friends on Facebook. But female-owned comic store, that's really good. There's a lot of fun places, and in the future maybe we'll get Jamie on, Dennis, and we'll get some retailers and some pros on to talk about this stuff more. I know it's not totally in our wheelhouse. We talk about TV here, but we met in comic store. We're all comic book people at heart. So, enjoy STD and give Doctor Who another chance this year. One day at a time, my friend. I probably will.
He's gonna like it. It's right now. He's down on it, and then he's gonna watch it. And go, oh my god!
I would not count on that happening.
That is not something I think is going to happen. But we'll probably give it a shot. No matter
that's gonna be our prediction for 2018.
You want to bet on that?
I'll put money against that bet.
I'll bet you a Coke.
I don't do Coke anymore, Dennis. A Coke. Sorry.
One of these guys right here. Sponsored by nobody.
Dallas. Okay, so we got to thank the Bentox there, and James Hayes and Brandon Havey with some really great comments and questions. Darian Anderson, Halam, Mad Paul X. Bear with us here. Apple Crow, what's up, dude?
Brian Smart,
the great Brian Smart, who has been with us for a long time.
Silver Spike came in as well. Ricky Gagy, and we also had somebody way back in the beginning from the Netherlands. Mark from Switzerland.
Yes, man, we're huge in Switzerland. Any final words, guys? Like suggestions? Anything?
Bentox actually says $50. Says he'll be okay with the premiere.
I took him up on that bet, so we'll see. We'll settle up on the premiere next time.
I think that no, I think we've said our piece on this.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for watching and viewing. As usual, you can find all of our podcasts and videos at nerdrotic.com. If you have not subscribed to the Nerdrotic channel, please do and hit that bell. And we all have Twitters. Gentlemen, what are your Twitters?
John, go for it.
I'm at Jon Reed 16, JONREED 16.
I am at DeForce, DAFORCE.
Yeah, Melissa's at Agent Bossy Boots. She's not here. She shows up once in a while. She's my wife. She's cool. And my Twitter is at Nerdrotics. Our next show will be in about an hour and a half. It will be Star Trek Discovery. Hope you will join us then. If you want to check out our schedules at nerdrotic.com, we actually keep it's more of a guideline than a schedule. We're within 15, 20 minutes of our time. So we'll get better at that, but how it goes. So I guess, Dennis, take us out.
Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out, America and the rest of the world.
And may the small folks sing songs of your greatness.
Awesome. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.